destruction if you can see it for what it is. When does Haman begin his plot to destroy the Jewish people? It says in the month of Nisan. That's coming up. Nisan. Interesting. It was in the month of Nisan that the first plot to destroy the Jewish people, or the first massive attack, happened in history. It was in the month of Nisan that Pharaoh mounted a massive campaign to come against the children of Israel. And his chariots pursued them into the wilderness, and Israel cried out, "We're going to die." And that day that he did that is dated by the rabbis as Nisan 19, the first attempt to destroy the Jewish people. In the land of Austria, a young woman gave birth to a baby. She called him Adolphus. He would be known as Adolf. He was born on the 19th of Nisan, the same day, the anniversary of the first destruction, attempt to wipe out the Jewish people. So to Haman, the same hand is at work. It was in the month of Nisan, the enemy sought to destroy, actually, Satan tried to destroy the Messiah in the month of Nisan. That's where he came in to have him crucified. What else do we see about Revelation, about the enemy of our souls in this revelation of Purim? Well, Haman seeks to get orders passed through, to have it carried out by others. The enemy does the same thing. He acts through others, through people, and through things. Sometimes you realize it's him, sometimes you don't. But he will certainly act through those who are ungodly. He will certainly act through those who are evil, of course, hurtful people, sinful people. But he can even act through people who might be close to you. Just like Peter was a good man who loved Messiah, but Satan was able to speak through him in probably a moment of pride. And through believers, even through believers, sometimes it could be the enemy. It doesn't mean it's God. But the enemy will also seek through circumstances to mislead you, you thought it was God and it was the enemy, or trip you up. So be aware. What does it mean? Don't go by your circumstances, because the enemy can be there too. You can't go, God can show you things in your circumstance. God can show you things in signs, but be careful. You are not of your circumstance. Even in the body, even in his kingdom, there are people who are messed up, and the more issues they have, the enemy can use it if they're not submitted to God. There are believers who have the idea that we're just to accept what happens, and we're to be passive about things and be accepting, and that's Christ-like. Turn the other cheek. Not so. Don't confuse turning the other cheek with turning the other cheek with regard to the devil. We are to turn the other cheek with regard to forgiving people. But we are not to turn the other cheek with regard to the devil. Because our warfare is not with flesh and blood. That's why we but it is with principalities. That means we do have a war. Our warfare is not with flesh and blood, but we do have a war, and that war is with the enemy. Mordecai didn't just accept what Haman did or planned to do. He knew it went against God's plan, and he resisted Haman. He resisted Haman big time, to the point where it was a threat on his life. Not only in not bowing, but then working against Haman's plot by sending word to Esther. Don't confuse peaceful with passive or accepting evil. Messiah was peaceful, but he wasn't passive. He was not passive about evil. He was the one who turned over the temple, the tables. He's the one who gave his life. And the same with you, the same when you deal with the enemy, don't accept what the enemy does. Don't resign yourself to the enemy's what he's doing in your life. Resist it. I'm not talking about fighting people. I'm talking about fighting the enemy. Don't resist it. Don't accept that sin that it has to be in your life. It doesn't have to be in your life. Don't accept the notion that you have to live in that bondage. You don't have to. Or you can never be free. Don't. Resist. It says resist the devil. The Bible says resist the devil. But it says submit to God. Submit to God. Don't just resist the devil. It says submit to God, then resist the devil, and he will flee. But you first have to get yourself in God's will, then resist the devil. What does Esther do? What do we do with regard to the enemy's attacks? What did Esther do? How does she overcome? The key action in the book is she approaches the king. The revelation, how do you overcome the enemy? Not by fighting him on your own, but by approaching the king. You first approach the king, the Lord, with every battle. First, don't fight your battles and then come to God for help. Come to God first. When you got a problem, approach the king. Then do what you have to do. Because when you do it on your own, you're going to wear yourself out, and you know what? You're not any match for the devil. But the devil is no match for God. So if you're doing it through God, you will win. You know, it's amazing how many times we do things and we get wrapped up in all sorts of problems without even stopping to pray. And it's like a revolutionary thing that we should have prayed first. How much we go through because we did things without praying. Notice what happened in the Bible. The armies of Israel, sometimes they would go up by themselves, and what happened? They'd always lose if they didn't do it with God. What does Esther do to overcome the enemy? She prays and fasts. As everybody say, everybody pray and fast. No. I'm not telling you to say pray and fast. She tells everybody to say pray and fast. Messiah said, and Messiah said at one point, he says, how do you overcome? This one only comes out, the enemy, with prayer and fasting. No, now how much are you praying? How much are you fasting? I'm not telling you what a thing is. Prayer, yeah, prayer all the time. Fasting as you're led. But who knows how many victories you may not have seen because you're not in prayer as you should be. Who knows how many, you want victory? Get into prayer. Get into more prayer. You'll save yourself so much trouble. And what else is the key?